All right. What is happening, everybody? How you doing, Paul?
I'm still digging to the music. Still rocking and rolling, head bobbing to the music.
That was fun. That was super fun. Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another AskZBrush live stream with myself, Ian Robinson, and Paul Gavery. So we're here to show you some new stuff, with the AskZBrush in particular, take some of your questions. We also have some questions that we get quite frequently during our live stream. So we thought, let's just live stream some of those questions that we get often and share some of that knowledge. So we see your questions coming through. So of course, just like any live stream, if you have a question you would like to ask, go ahead and ask that question and we'll answer it to the best of our ability. So yeah, without further ado, let's start the party.
Start it up. You got the first one, eh?
I got the first one.
Oh,
so first one is, you might see that I am on the ZBrush website. And that's because we added something new that we thought would be very helpful to help organize some of these questions. So if you go to pixelogic.com, at the very top now, you will see an Ask ZBrush. And we're going to put the links in the description. In fact, I'll just copy and paste that right now. Boop. So you'll be taken to this page, which is an AskZBrush page. And here you're going to be able to search through all of our AskZBrush videos really quickly without having to go to all these different social platforms. So you'll also be able to directly ask your questions. So let's kind of get into it for a minute. First thing is, you're taken to this page where if you have a question, you can go ahead and type into your question. How do I learn DynaMesh? We'll just use that. Boop. And I can't even type, so DynaMesh. And then you'll go ahead and hit Ask ZBrush. It will say, hold on, and then it'll actually send your question straight to us. So while you still can go on Twitter and hashtag AskZBrush on Twitter or on YouTube, this is a great way to just start sending your questions directly to us. And then we'll go through about the questions and see, and get you an answer as soon as possible. So that's the first thing, which I really like. I thought this was a pretty cool idea because, we get questions all the time. So this is just a nice way to just throw it right at us. And then the other thing too is searchability. So right now you can see here, we have a lot of AskZBrush pages, and a lot of these videos, they're on our YouTube, but it might be kind of problematic to search for what you're looking for. Like, I would love to know how to do DynaMesh. So in the search, if you search keywords like DynaMesh, I'm going to go ahead and type in DynaMesh. And now it's going to give me some suggestions. But if I just type in DynaMesh and say search, now what it's going to do is it's going to populate all the videos we've ever done pertaining to DynaMesh. So you can see here, I have a ZBrush top tips, how I use Stager with DynaMesh. This video here covers surface noise patterns and details using DynaMesh methods. So this is a great way to start searching through, and you can go ahead and very easily and effectively kind of narrow down your question, because there's a good chance your question was already asked. So this is a great way that you could search through that. It also pulls up some of our live streams and stuff. So again, we're live almost every single day. So there's an artist on here that could also help take your questions. So this might also introduce you to some new artists as well, which is really fun. And then finally, as I'm blasting through this, is there is a vote on questions. So any question that has been currently asked, you can come over here and read some of the questions that users have already asked. And if you see your question, or you're like, actually, I would really like to know how to do X, Y, and Z, you could just come on over and upvote your question, and that will help go ahead and populate. So I can say,
X, Y, and Z, those are axes in the 3D world space, Ian.
Yes, they are. They're also the axes in my life. So.
Well, I thought you were asking. We're AskZBrushing it.
Oh, no. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can come through and you can upvote your question. So that's the new page, AskZBrush. So go ahead, pop on there and see if there's something you would like to have us answer. Paul, was there anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah. We're trying to make this like a resource for you all, because AskZBrush has been a very popular segment that we started now 7 years ago. Even if you want to go all the way back in the day in my original Did You Know That, which is pretty much the same thing, which is 12 years ago. So I know you all take advantage of this. You find some really great resources. So we wanted to try and put this in one location for you. But not only that, give you the ability to search for stuff so you can maybe find your answer that way easily, instead of trying to search just through a browser. Also then give you the ability to ask a question right there on the page. It's going to get sent to Ian and I. And then the big one that Ian just talked about was allowing you all to upvote any question that, hey, that's a great question. Number one, maybe you didn't think about it and you really want that answer. Or number two, you ask that question, you see it on there and you want to try and get it up to the top, because Ian and I will be looking at these on this page and figuring out what questions to answer to you all in the upcoming AskZBrush videos that we keep releasing on a regular basis. But we thought also for this stream, let's just do some of them that you all have already asked and start answering those for you now. We're going to answer a bunch of them today. And I encourage you, I'm keeping my eye on the chat, Ian is as well, to fire away other questions that you might have. We'll do our best to answer what we can. And we already have some questions that I know people have already asked that we want to do. And then we'll have some more news items at the end of this stream as well.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to get into the first question. And if anybody knows my streams, I think I get asked this question once a stream ever since I started streaming. And that is, how can I actually make a custom cam view at the little top? So if you don't know, in ZBrush, right here at the top right-hand side of your viewport, you actually have this little guy right here. This is a cam view. And on a lot of my streams, I have my little zombie cap up here. So we're going to cover how you can actually make a custom cam view with any sculpt that you have. So I have my sculpt here, this little tank, and I want to make him a cam view. The first thing I want to do is actually, you want to make sure you merge everything into a single subtool. And so the best way to do that is to go to Subtool, to go to Merge, and say Merge Visible. And that's going to go ahead and merge everything into a single subtool right here at the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now if I hit Shift F, you can see here, everything is merged together. Now, what I will want to do is actually take my Gizmo. And if I had X symmetry turned on at any reason, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off by pressing X on the keyboard. I'm going to press and hold Alt. And with this little unmasked mesh center Google icon, we're going to click that to send that to the center of my selected subtool. And then I'm going to hit the home button to make sure that it is truly in its home position. Now we're going to go ahead and hit F on the keyboard just to frame that. Maybe back it up a little bit. I'm going to hit Q to close down the Gizmo. And now the thing that you have to remember when you're making a custom cam view is that ZBrush sees true black as being invisible. So down here at the bottom of your colors on the left-hand side, you might already have true black as your default. And if not, just go ahead and right here in this little color swatch, drag down to the bottom of the true black and hover over. It'll show red, green, and blue RGB being 000. And now we're just going to go ahead and go on up to Documents. And right here where it says Document Background Color, I'm going to press, click, and hold. And I'm going to go ahead and just select that color. So that's going to make this true black. This way, our cam view is, or a model, is actually the only thing we see in the cam view. From here, we're going to go up to Preferences, and we're going to come on down to Cam View. And then we're just going to say Make Cam View. Now, you can go ahead, before I hit Make Cam View, you can go ahead and render out your scene. So if you want some dynamic lighting or you want the color, you can go ahead and hit Shift R. Just note that when you are rendering it, when you click Cam View, it's going to render out each section, so each frame. So it's going to take some time if you're actually just doing a full render. So just be careful with that. Now that we have that, we'll notice on the left-hand side on our texture box, we actually have a texture now. And we're going to want to save this texture. So it's already selected by default. So we're going to go ahead and click our texture and say Export. And then from here, what I like to do is I like to go into the program files. And if you have either the Pixelogic folder or the Maxon ZBrush 2022, it won't matter. The process is the same. Just click one of them. And then you're going to go into your ZStartup, into your cam view. And then here, I just encourage that you save it out as a PSD or a PNG. That way it has a true transparent background. So we'll save this as a Photoshop file. And you can see here, we already have a bunch of Photoshop files that are saved within that ship with ZBrush. We'll go ahead and you can name this whatever you want. I will call this my Tank Mini. And then let's go ahead and hit Save. And now right up here at the top, you might notice it's a little small, but we have our custom cam view as this little tank. So we can actually change the size of this a little bit. So if we come back to Preferences, you can see under cam view, we have size default at 128. We can go ahead and scale that up to 250, or we could take it down all the way to 50. So you can adjust the size according to what you would like. And then
micro machine.
A micro machine, yeah. Like, there you go, super small. Once you find the size that you like, go ahead and go up to config and store your config. And from there, it's going to go ahead next time it loads ZBrush, you will have your custom cam view right at the top so you can see it. What I like about this is that if you have like any type of anatomy reference, this is a really great way to have like a human head or a skull or something that you can go ahead and reference. So it's a neat way to have that. And if for some reason, if you ever like misplace that cam view or you want to try to load another one, just go back to preferences, cam view, and you could just say next. And anything that you've saved in that folder that we saved our texture out, or anything that came default will be in there. And then you just go back up to config and then go ahead and store config. So yeah,
nice.
That's a fun one.
Okay, my turn.
Your turn.
Okay. Okay, let me go. My turn. All right. One thing I do want to add about the cam view, though, that everybody, I want you to understand why it's important to you, is this tells you the world. So this is the forward part of the world, and then this is the back part of the world. So, and then obviously this is up. So this is the up part of the world. So it helps you without even turning on the floor grid. You know that this model in particular is looking straight at positive Z camera world. Okay, number one. And number two, this is also can be used to snap to 3/4 views. So you can move the actual icon and it'll snap to 3/4 views for you. Okay, so that's another thing that's handy. And then the other thing, and the ones that Ian just highlighted, like this green is important because it's going to snap to, in this case, the top and the bottom. And then this is left and right. And then this is front and back. Right, so these three colors are used to snap. So that's one extra thing that I wanted to throw in there. So, but the question that I want to answer, let me get it real quick here. How can I keep the same density with Sculptris Pro mode, but have the ability to change my brush size in ZBrush? Okay, so that's an important one for sure. So again, we're taking questions that already exist, and now you got a new page to be able to talk about this. So I want to touch a little bit on this Sculptris Pro, especially for those that are maybe watching, don't even know what this is. First of all, this is a mode you can turn on or off. So I've turned it on by my handy icon up here. So this is your Sculptris Pro mode. So what's happening with this, when I turn this on, we are sculpting and it's dynamically tessellating. So what that means is as you sculpt, it's trying to add triangles and tessellate the triangles across as you're going. So as you can see, these triangles weren't very dense, and now it's getting more dense right there. So the user, the person was asking, hey, when you change your draw size, you're going to see the density of the triangles change, right? So it's driven by your draw size. If you go bigger, you're going to get bigger triangles. If you go smaller, and we'll go smaller now, you're going to get smaller triangles. All right. So they would like to be able to control, in essence, the triangles, but not have the brush size control that. So it's pretty easy. In your stroke palette, there is going to be a menu. I'm going to dock this. There's a menu called Sculptris Pro. So this is your global settings. This is key. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. This is the beauty of doing this live. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. Ian, stop laughing. I see you out of the corner. It's fine.
Down the rabbit hole we go.
You know it.
I love it.
Captain Tangent. My cape's blowing in the wind. Let's do this. So this is your button, which as you can see, if I'm turning this on and off, it's the same thing as up there. So you got two options and a slider, right? So what's controlling the ability to change the actual triangle size by brush is this adaptive size. So if you actually just turn that off, then whatever you have this slider right here, subdivide set to, your triangles are going to be the same size. So regardless of your draw size, so if we just go, I'm going to go bigger just to go bigger so it's easier to see. Okay. And then as I sculpt, you can see we're getting big, big triangles, like just craziness. But no matter what draw size I go with, I'm going to get those big triangles. Okay, so this, to answer that question, this is all you have to do. All you have to do is turn on off that adaptive size. All right, so this is controlling the density that's being added as you sculpt this slider. And what's important about the Sculptris Pro that's really handy about this dynamic tessellation, we're also decimating at the same time. So it's not just tessellation happening, it's decimation happening. Do that 4 times. Desolation, tessimation, decimation, desolation. It's like, I feel like it could be a song. Go, Ian, and we're rapping.
Desolation,
so
tessimation. Actually,
handy. And this combine button is using both. So if you notice, keep an eye. I'm going to bring it right up here. Look at right there. I'm at about 1 million polygons right now on this mesh. So when I go and sculpt, you'll see that there are triangles going to be added, right? But you see that the number isn't climbing crazy because it's also decimating. So if we turn back on our adaptive, so we get a little bit more triangles, okay, you can see the number is climbing and climbing and climbing a little bit. And when I let go, right, those numbers will change because now it's combining both a tessellation and a decimation in essence. And this is really nice having Sculptris Pro to, like, I can start in essence getting rid of the ear. So if you go with a larger brush size, you can really just destroy the ear on this. So one other thing that I want to point out about this before I throw it back to Ian is these are global settings. Now, as a user, you're going to want to be able to maybe have brushes with Sculptris Pro on and brushes with not Sculptris Pro on. I.e., for example, my H polish brush, I like to have the Sculptris Pro off. And it's just the way I prefer to work with that brush. So there is a way to do this. So we're giving you all your scenarios. So now I'm going to dock the brush palette. And the brush menu has its own Sculptris Pro. By default, it's going to do whatever the global setting is doing in stroke, because the stroke menu is the global overall strokes that are happening on the brush system with Sculptris Pro. In the brush palette is where we're going to individually look at certain brushes. I want some brushes to have it and some brushes not to have it. So you can see there's a use global and enable. So if I turn off enable, this particular brush, you'll see that the icon is now red. And now this is just clay buildup. That's the normal clay buildup, which is one of my favorite brushes. But if I switched, say, to a standard brush, you see that my icon has now become purple and that my Sculptris Pro is now available back to me. So you can switch between brushes to have Sculptris Pro on and off in this way. So it opens up a nice workflow for you if there's certain brushes you want to have it on and off with. Not only that, the third scenario might be there might be certain brushes you want to use different settings. Like in the standard brush, you might want to have different settings here for your subdivide and your undivide compared to, say, something like the clay buildup or any other brush that you want to use here, like Dame Standard. Okay, if you want to use that, the Damien Standard brush. Maybe you want this brush that when you're sculpting, you want not just the global setting, you want this to have its own and say maybe, oh, I want this to be really refined. So I'm going to do 0.5 so that, look, you can get even a better stroke, right, than I originally got, because now the Damien Standard is looking at its own Sculptris Pro controls. It's no longer looking at the global ones here because I've changed the slider over here to that particular brush. So I think all that's really important to understand. And then the last thing I'm just going, okay? Welcome to being on stream live with me. Visibility is huge. You all want to take advantage of this. The more visibility, right, that you have to take advantage, then you're going to be able to, like, you technically could stay in Sculptris Pro mode for an entire sculpt if you really wanted to. I don't think you should do that, but you can, right? So when you have now just this, ZBrush is only looking at a section. So what's nice about this, especially for all of you that have different computers out there, this could be really helpful, right? I can even just narrow down to just what I want. So I want to say, I'll go to the eye over here. And right now I have symmetry on. So we'll turn symmetry on. So now only this part I can pay attention and look at and sculpturally just add where I want. And I'm now just dynamically tessellating with Sculptris Pro. And you can get a really fast, it's like right now butter for me to go through here to work on this model. So I would highly recommend, if you've never played with Sculptris Pro, get going on this. Start playing with something like this. It's really awesome. I enjoy it. All right, so that answers that question. I'm going to kick it back to Ian now, and he's going to take on another question.
All right. I love it. Well, I have a very simple cube here that I worked all day on. So, you know, I want to make sure.
Is it the board ship?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
It's a little bit flatter than that. We're going for a new design. So this question came in, was talking about the ability to duplicate your textures within the Spotlight. And this is a really cool question because it's a really simple technique, but it's a great way to bring in some details and texture very quickly, especially if you're working with seamless textures. So as you can see here, I have this amazing little cube that I've been working on. And what I would like to do is turn this into a brick wall of sorts. So I first need to load in a texture. So I'm going to go up to texture and I'm going to go to import. And here I actually have some, what is it in that one? I had it here for a second. This is me. Where's my brushes? There we go. Got my textures. And now I have a nice brick texture here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to add to Spotlight. So now I have this giant texture. But as you can see, looks like I got a second one here. As you can see, it's not quite the size of the square. And also, too, if I shrink this down, you know, I would have to try to line this up as best I can. Well, we don't need to do that. What we need to do is just blow it up to a decent scale. Say something like this. Actually, let's go here. And now we have these little buttons. Now, this might be a little hard to see, so I'm going to zoom in for a second. We have these three little green lines or these red three lines. And here, what this is going to do is allow us to actually duplicate this. So if I press and click one time and I start scaling up, you can see here that I'm duplicating the texture in one axis. And if I press and click the red one, I'm going to duplicate it in the other axis. Now, what's really cool is we don't even need to, if we want to have like a uniform duplication where we want both like 2x2 or 6x6, I don't need to click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's too much work, right? We're just going to go ahead and press and hold Shift, and I'm going to click the green or the red three boxes, and now it's just going to automatically duplicate both at the same time. So I can go ahead and cover this whole wall with, say, a 2x2, and now go ahead and hit Z. Now, this is an important part. When you first load up ZBrush and you come up to Brush and you go to Samples, Spotlight Projection is defaulted turned on. But some of us use Spotlight to also have reference images for what we're sculpting. So if you've turned that off, but you're using this to texture, make sure that it is turned on. So that's Brush, Samples, Spotlight Projection. And now from here, I can go ahead and grab my brush. I'm just going to grab a standard brush with my drag rec. And I'm just going to go ahead and just click and drag and get the texture sculpted on there. Shift Z to turn that off. And as you can see now, I was able to duplicate those textures and paint them on with ease. So one more time, I'll go ahead and hit Z again. Shift Z hides. Z brings it up with controls. And then if you have Shift Z and it's hidden and you bring up Shift Z again, it'll bring it up without those controls. But here we can go ahead and just drag and get that going. But yeah, this is a really fun one. I like this. Again, very simplistic way of getting textures on there. I feel like it's underutilized a little bit, but I really like doing that. It's fun. Just paint. There, got a brick wall. Easy peasy.
Just like that. Okay.
Just like that.
Okay, so my turn again?
I'm gonna volley it or spike it back to you, whichever one you want.
All right. I love it. I love it. Oops. Sorry, go ahead. I'm just messing up. Okay. I'm going to take a live question. Someone that came in, someone was asking, if I'm using layers, can I add thickness? Yes, it actually is possible. And here's a way you could do it. It's going to depend on obviously what you're doing and how you're working. So this is an example of because it was live, I just threw something on a plane really fast. Just some sculpting detail, right? So you can see this has a layer. So I'm going to go to layers. So if I wanted to add to this, right, you would need to be able to go in record mode. And then you have layer information here that you would want. So if I wanted to have some thickness, you could try, this has got subdivision levels, right? So if I want to add more in here, you can start adding more in here. And you got some subdivisions, but what you could do if you wanted to is throw in some dynamic. So now you've got actual thickness. I'm not sure if this is what you were looking for. You just want to add some thickness to something you have layers on. You would have this ability. So what I'd recommend if you're going to try this is by default, this smoothness will be on to 2. I'd probably put that at 0 because you don't need it. And then this is your thickness slider that's controlling the thickness that you'd want. Okay. And then in this case, I put the offset to a -100. So I'm not sure what specifically you were looking for to do with layers and a thickness. This is one thing. Obviously, you were just looking to add thickness with something that had layers. You could obviously bake the layers, remesh it, and then do a thickness that way too. But this could be a way that you could go at that if you wanted to. Okay, to the question that came to us on the feed. This was a question that came in saying, is there a way to conform an IMM part to the normals of the surface? So IMM brushes are already doing that by default, but I want to bring this up on purpose. So that question, so I grabbed this model. So if I'm pulling anything out, you can see no matter what shape I take, it is conforming by default to the normal. We are looking at the normal, the vertex that you're drawing on, and then these pieces are just being drawn along that normal. But I wanted to specifically answer this for something else. That's nice that I find myself using a ton with IMM brushes, and that's the Gizmo. So you'll notice once I draw out, the Gizmo is being aligned also along that same normal. So for us, it's important and easy for it to be able to move this thing in space. And I know I'm moving. Here's my 3D coming at you with my camera. That's right, people, have some fun. It's Tuesday, okay? Just have a good time. So this is going to allow you to move along that exact same normal because by default, the Gizmo is going to have that for us, and it's already centered, so we can size up. We can move in this direction or that direction. But what also can become very handy for you is doing this. So if you hold the Alt key, because I want to go to an unlock state. So the Gizmo has 2 states. It's got a lock state, lock it down, or it's got an unlock state that you can click on and unlock it. I personally never click on that icon anymore because I use the handy dandy shortcuts that Ian also had brought up with the Alt key. And you can see as long as my cursor is within the Gizmo area, it's unlocked. If I let go of my Alt key, see, no keyboard touching. Okay, now keyboard touching. So what I'm going to do is hit this little reset orientation. So I'll click that. And what that does is resets the orientation of the Gizmo to the center, in essence, of the world axis. So now the blue is looking at the blue along the blue axis, which is your Z, red your X, and then YMC, Y is your green. Okay, there you go. Songs are happening to play. So the beauty of this is what I'm going to show you now. So if I take here, let's take another piece. Let's take this, and you start drawing something out. You can see it's trying to follow that normal, but you can see I can switch it and tell, no. I want you to look straight down that axis of the Z axis in this case. So I'm going to turn off perspective so you can get a better understanding of this. And you can see we're looking straight at the piece now compared to just drawing it on the surface. And the reason why I can do that is I've reset the Gizmo to be looking down the Z axis. All right. So when I draw this out, if I just hold down the shift key when I'm doing that, then ZBrush will actually look at this axis. What this means is you could do anything. Okay, so you could even do a little bit of a different angle like that, right, before you draw out. So now this Gizmo is going in a different direction altogether. So you could have now, I'll grab something else along the normal or shift key it. And you can see that is actually shifting to the position of the Gizmo before I drew out. So what this opens up for you is you can draw along the normal, or you have 360 degrees, any direction you want, by using the Gizmo to set the angle you maybe want first and then go along. This is so important for little things, especially when you guys want to take advantage of the Gizmo, i.e. if I want to draw something like here, okay, and then now I want to draw another one. It's so easy. Hold the control key, and then there you go. I got another one there. And then control key, and I got, see, this is going to move in 2 axes. So I want to go in only 1 axis. So I'm going to hold the Alt key, boom, control key. And then I know these 3 are sitting on the same plane. Even though I didn't draw them out, I copied the other 2. So, but I knew they're on the same plane because the original drawing out that I did put them right along that normal. right? And listen, I'm wearing my tangent cape today, so I'm just going to be tangenting off like no one's business, Ian. So you
I love it.
buckle up, you fly right, be the wingman, and I'll be your wingman. Okay, we're going to send it back to Ian now.
All right.
You're ready for your next one?
I am ready for my next one. Actually, we're going to take a live one before we get into the next full question. So we were actually asked here, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, how can we select a couple or multiple subtools without moving the rest of the model? So this one's fun. This is a little gizmo trick that I really, really like. So you can see here, I got my zombie cat model up, and I have a couple subtools here. And I would like to, in fact, here, we'll even go one better. I'm going to go ahead and split some of these off. So I'm going to quickly split this off real fast. Okay, it's not letting me split that up for some reason. What's happening there? Yay, hold on one second. All right, perfect. Uh-oh, there we go. Hold on one second. There we go. Let's grab that and split that off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and split this off real fast. So I have all these different subtools here, as you can see. And now we would like to just move one portion of this. So if you hit W and open up the gizmo, if we see this little nice lock icon that Paul was showing everybody, well, right next to it is a transpose all selected subtools button, or known as the pizza box, whichever you would like to call it. If you go ahead and actually click this one time with your left mouse button, you'll see here now that everything doesn't look like it changed. But what's really neat is if I select just a portion, or I hold Control Shift and tap certain aspects, now I can select different models. So you can see I have the eyes and the teeth as two different subtools being moved at the same time. So this is a way you can do that. And you can just come through and either Control Shift tap what you would like to hide it and just move maybe these two pieces. Or you can actually Control swipe, or you can even use your, select lasso and just get a portion and say, let's hold Alt. I just want to hide those. And then you can even Control Shift tap to invert that selection. So if you were like, oh, I didn't mean to grab the helmets and I actually wanted to grab the head, just go ahead and Control Shift tap and that will switch. So then you can do that. So that's a way you can select the multiple ways of doing that. The old school way that I used to do it would be just to go to your Z plugin, go to transpose, go to transpose mesh, and then break it up and then send it back. But that's a little bit much. So this is a way that you can actually select multiple subtools at the same time. So covering that one live, that was pretty cool. Now for the question that came in, which is actually how can we preserve details when we decimate something? And this one is really neat and is really effective, especially if you're trying to decimate a model down for, like, let's say 3D printing. You've worked all, hours and hours to get detail. And now you're like, well, okay, I want to be able to save that detail, because when I decimate, I might lose some of it. So we're going to focus here on this head. So I'm going to solo this out. And as you can see, if I zoom in, first things first, it's DynaMeshed, but I have some detail that is really decent and I really like underneath his chin and on his neck area. So what you can do is actually just go ahead and get a nice big brush, hold Control, and now we're just going to go ahead and start masking the areas that we would like to preserve. And what ZBrush is going to do is it's going to take into account the fact that this mask is here, and it's going to tell the algorithm, hey, pay attention to this, because we're going to go ahead and get as much of the topology in there as possible to keep those details while still spreading the rest of the topology around to hold the shape of the model. So as you can see here, I have this masked, and now we can just come on up to Z plugin. We'll go down to Decimation Master. And of course, if you want to keep your UVs or your poly paint, you have an option to do that by saying use and keep poly paint, because I like it. Just because we're dropping it down doesn't mean we can't keep the fun prettiness of it. And now I like to just go ahead and use these presets because it automatically pre-processes and decimates at the same time. But of course, you can still pre-process your current subtool or all your subtools and then decimate if you have some specific settings you would like to play with. But for this, we're going to go ahead and just do a preset at 500,000 points. So you just go ahead and click Custom. And now this is going to go ahead and work the algorithm to make sure that it decimates and preserve those details. I'm going to try to do this in real time. It might take just a minute, so I'm going to ramble a bit more on that. But the other thing to note too is that, you know, you can gradient out this mask, and so you can kind of feather your details so it doesn't look super rigid. So you can have a sharp mask, or you can feather that mask out and make it look a little bit more natural. But it's a great way to do the preserved details. It's actually going pretty quick. So
you can't fast forward yourself. I mean, you can't go.
What? Here, hold on. Yeah, let me hit fast forward on the VCR.
You're not supposed to be speaking at regular speed if you're fast forwarding, Ian. Okay. You're supposed to be, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Let's be accurate.
And okay, let's re-render it. Perfect. It's real time, people. It's real time. This is how we do it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift F. And now you can see here every spot that was masked. Look at that. All that detail was kept, was pushed in there. If I go ahead and hit Shift F again to kind of close that down, can't really tell a difference much at all. Shift F, and you can see all of that topology. It spread the rest of it of the areas in which I didn't really want to preserve or didn't really mind doing. So that is how you can preserve details when decimating. It's really awesome, beautiful, really effective, and perfect for 3D printing stuff.
Mm-hmm. I like it. All right.
All right.
My turn again?
Spiking it back to you, Paul.
Okay. Spike. Okay. So the person already did it in the message about a question about deleting multiple edge loops. I just wanted to visually show it. Also because of maybe someone didn't see it in the chat. So someone asked, how can I delete multiple edge loops with one click? So in geometry, in your edge loop world, okay, there is a delete loops down here. So you can delete, and then you can see all those edge loops were deleted with one click. And then you'll have controls here, an angle control in essence, an angle as in degree angle change in here, and then an aspect ratio. And you can use groups, limit it to polygroups, if not, and partial edge looping as well. So it's a old dog feature. Okay, so it's there, but there you go. So now another question that came in is, how can I extract clean pieces, hard surface? I love this one. My mind is going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs right now because there's so many ways I can go about doing this. All right. So this is a DynaMesh piece. So that person is asking the question. Most likely a lot of us are going to start doing, you know, maybe some masking, i.e. they want to use some masking to do some extraction. All right. The problem you're going to have here is I don't have the cleanest topology to do this, right? So if I make a new polygroup, you can really see what's happening here through those edges, right? That's going on. So I want to share a couple techniques here that I think will be beneficial for you to have. Oh, my mind is going like so like crazy right now. All the features I just want to show right now. Okay, the first one that's going to be really beneficial for you is take advantage of polygroups as an example, right? And I'm going to switch to my smoothing brushes. I don't need Sculptris Pro anymore, so I'll make sure, okay, make sure that's off. All right, so I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to up the smooth brush modifiers. Let me make sure you guys can see that all right. Yep. And then right here, this little weighted slider, I'm going to go all the way to number 9 right there. Okay, so you can either use 6 or 9. And then now when I smooth, so you can create a nice border edge through here. Okay, so this is one way you can clean up that border edge. So you want to take advantage maybe of that extract, and then I can hold control and then see mask everything up but that polygroup with my Gizmo, and then I can inverse it. So now you're going to get a cleaner looking mask in here. So this is one way of using the smooth brush. Now, another way to go about this if you wanted to, right? Because here, I'll show so you guys can see. So if I now extrude in, this is, I'm assuming, what you wanted as the user. You can see how clean that now got. And then, you know what? Bonus. Bonus. Okay, so Gizmo, if you hold the control and click on any of the arrows, if something's masked on the mesh, we're not going to copy now. We're going to extrude an edge loop. So I can even let go on my keyboard and keep extruding edge loops, right? So now I'm adding all that extra nice topology in there, thinking about things like remeshing, or when I divide, that's going to look very different when I divide when that many edge loops in it compared to just the one big in it. Excuse me. Okay, so there's that. Here's another one. I'm sorry. I just got to do it. It's got to be done.
You
Okay.
can do it.
All right. It's just I have too much fun when I get involved in this stuff. I love
But we
these
love
kinds
them.
of streams because
Yeah.
it's just fun to really challenge your mind and think artistically and kind of like, what can I do? What
know,
is
right?
possible? I don't know why I'm changing my voice right now, but just go with it, people.
What
Right,
is
so
possible?
What?
What is possible?
All right. So here's another one that I think is super useful. Okay. Boom. I just made a nice slicing based upon my mask. This is another beautiful little gem feature that once you see this and once you use it, you're like, what? I'm flipping tables. I could have used that 3 models ago. It always happens to all of us. So you can see we actually sliced along the border of the mask in here. Okay. And so that created, so now if we look, right, you've got a different type of edge in here. So, right. So see, you can make another clean extrude if you wanted to. So I'm using the shortcut to do this because I'm a shortcut person. So that shortcut is Control-Shift-E as in
Echo.
Edmonton because I'm Canadian, darn it. Okay. What is the E normally? Because there's Alpha, Bravo, Charlie,
Echo, I think.
Echo. There it is. Thank you.
Echo.
E for Ian. Oh, I like an Empire of Cheese.
Ooh,
It doesn't matter. It starts with an I. I like it. You won't forget it. E for Ian now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So where this is also living in the edge loop world, which is right here, edge loop masked border. And let's not forget when you scroll over a button, we give you the shortcut. So you can see the shortcut right there in my UI here. I'll hide it. You can see it clear as day now. Control-Shift-E. Okay. So this is definitely another way to go about doing this to get clean, nice shapes that maybe you want to do that. Okay. Ian, I'm showing them a third one. I want to show another one. I got to do it. How about just use straight up the brush, right? So mesh project. I personally enjoy using the curve function more than the lasso function with this brush, and then literally just double tap Alt, say the shape that you want, right? And now it's circular and then double tap, and then just let go, and bada bing, you've got a new clean surface with a bevel, like super beautiful, ready to go. Okay.
Love it.
So, and your thickness is going to be controlled by your Z intensity. So if I go with a lower Z intensity, and mind you, my finger's still on control, very important. Fingers on, I'm not snapping my fingers. So that means my finger's still on the keyboard. And then once again, now it's off because I've started this brush. And now I can double tap, double tap, double tap, double tap, get a shape, let go. And now I got a different size. And bonus, cha-cha-ching, here we go, bonus. All right, I'm going to do this now. And without moving the camera, I'm going to hold the Alt. I'm going to do other actions here to this. And I can say, how would I want to add elements to this? All right, well, I know what's going on here. Let's get rid of it. So this has the ability to add shapes, and then you can keep adding to it if you want to. Whoops. And keep using this to do whatever you'd like. So there is multiple ways to go about doing this. So I'd recommend any one of these as a way to clean up some hard surface stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. So back to you, Ian.
Oh, thank you. All right. So we had another question come in about the possibility of rendering out your image, but not going through the Photoshop plugin to get your renders out. So there is a couple ways. So the first way is if you go ahead and hit Shift R, or just come on up and hit this BPR render, and you go ahead and you render out your image, just coming on up to Documents and Export will export out a JPEG, a Photoshop file, PNG, bitmap, or TIFF. That is one way that you can do that. But the fun doesn't stop there. So that's the simplest way to do it. However, if you go ahead and you hit your BPR render and you go under the render menu, which I've docked here on the left-hand side, and go under BPR render passes, now every pass from that render is available for you to export. So what you can do is come on over. The first one is just your overall composite image. So if you just click on that image, it's going to allow you to go ahead and save that image out directly. Same thing as a JPEG, Photoshop file, PNG, bitmap, etc. And what's neat about this is that you can actually render out a depth pass, a shadow pass, an ambient occlusion pass if you activate it, a masking pass, and so forth. And then what you could do is take all these images and then kind of kit bash them or put them together in another application like Photoshop. So those are the ways that you could definitely get those renders out quickly and effectively. But simply, I mean, the other thing you could do too, and this is something that I like to do, this is more of just like when I do turns and stuff like that. If I wanted to showcase this model a bit, what I could do is go ahead and hit Shift F to kind of Shift S, not F, S. And I can actually just kind of stamp my model here on the sides just like this. And now my model is kind of stamped here. And then you could take a screen grab of sorts, or you can export a screen grab, and that will go ahead and do the same. So you can actually come through and say, yeah, I want my JPEG. Do it. And then that will go ahead and show you the scene. And then you could say, okay, perfect. So those are the ways that you can export out your image. And especially, again, if you render, it's really neat to come in here and individually take these BPR passes out yourself. So you don't have to go through the Z plugin, Photoshop. But of course, if you do have Photoshop, this is still available. So you can go ahead and just send directly to Photoshop. So that was that question. We did have another question that I thought was actually cool. It's not necessarily ZBrush related, but it's about carpal tunnel and the proper way to hold the technique in a pen tablet. I was gonna mention, when I use the pen tablet, I used to like just smash the tablet really, really hard. But when you get your tablet, spend some time and work within the tablet's software to adjust the pen pressure sensitivity, because you don't want to be pushing really, really hard on your tablet, especially when you're sculpting for long periods of time. It's really easy to come in and just adjust maybe a intensity and get that control fine-tuned from there. So for that, I would say just kind of dial in your settings a little bit and get up and stretch once in a while. We spend hours behind ZBrush, so it's helpful to get up, stretch, shake it off, come back. Plenty of breaks. Also helps the eye too. So, yeah. Not sure if you wanted to volley it back to you. Yeah,
sure.
These are
volley it up.
You're just
volley it up. All right. So someone was asking about moving edge loops, or it sounds like topology along, like in a poly group. So there is something you could do, and I'm not sure this is going to answer your question for you, but we're just in here. So it's beneficial on a low polygon. It can use ZModeler. So I'm just going to mask an entire edge loop right now. So I got that entire edge loop masked. I'll just inverse it. And so in essence, what happened is this edge loop right here is completely unmasked. So for example, I'm going to add now to the mask, and then let me actually switch to a masking brush. That is a useful thing to have. And I'm going to mask off the ends, and we'll say that's it. So now here on this edge, I use this a lot. You can now slide, and I can slide just one edge like this. So I'm only sliding here. We'll come out of this. I'm only sliding that edge now. Okay, and that's staying nice along there. And then because I've masked off, you could also go complete edge loop, and then it's only going to slide those edges, right? So because these vertex points are masked off, this point's not going to move right here. This point's moving because that's unmasked. So I like to use this a lot, and that's sliding along the surface, especially when you're doing hard surface, because if we throw dynamic on, or even just changing the piece, I'm going to hide the mask now, you can like completely change the shape and look and watch it change when you're dealing with low polygon. So now I've got kind of this new surface area here, which before it was like that. Okay, so this is a way to slide your topology around, is one way to do that for you. Okay, if you want to go something a little more dense, depending on, again, what you're trying to do here, if I just grab a plane, we'll throw a little bit of topology. There is an actual slide brush, not spiral. Slide, Paul. Say it with me, Paul. Slide. Everyone together. 1, 2, 3. Slide. Great. Thanks for participating. All right. So now you can slide. You can do stuff like this. This is kind of like a sculptural thought process idea. Like this was like, you can't tell I've been messing with that topology. This was really handy when I started doing a lot of environment stuff like this. I just wanted to start sliding around the topology and create some peaks maybe for some kind of thing, right? A mountain range. And so obviously, like, for example, if we now turn that handy dandy dynamic, throw some thickness on there, you can see what I mean by that, right? And then now I'm working on a single plane. I can just start, you know, sliding things around here, and I don't need it actually divided. And you can start just messing, sliding around topology in this sense. So this is another way as far as sliding goes. And then another one before I send anything back to Ian that is important that I think can wrap into this slide thought process, all right, is the move brush. Okay, so obviously when you all use the move brush, we're doing this. It's like grabbing my face and going, right? Okay, you can see I'm wound up today. I'm loving it right now. So if you hold the Alt key, you're going to go along the normals. What? Now we're talking Halloween. Yes, Halloween. Here we come. Perfect. 3D print it, mask, we're done. So what you can do is actually use the move brush to kind of slide the topology around a little bit. So if you click on here and then hold the shift key, you can see I'm actually sliding now along the surface instead of just grabbing it like this. Like that. Okay, well, you know, it definitely looks like something out of the Batman series, but that's not what we want. Okay, so I want to grab this, click on the surface, then hold the shift key, and click on the surface, then hold the shift key, click on the surface, and then hold the shift key. And you can see this is now going in the direction I would want it to go if I was actually doing a nice sliding ability. So I wanted to show those three. So that involve some kind of sliding that could be very beneficial for you. All right, I'm volleying it up to Ian.
Right.
Who's going to take the next question?
I'm going to catch it. I'm going to catch this one.
All right, good.
All right, so texturing. We get a lot of questions about texturing and how, you know, how can we just place the texture exactly where we want. You know, I myself use the texture a lot this way, where I would say like, oh, I'm just going to use the standard brush with the drag rec, alpha 22, and I'm going to drag this here. But let's say I drag this texture, and then I realize I don't want it there. But so I'm trying to like find the right spot for this to be. Well, instead of constantly dragging it, Control Z, dragging it, Control Z, we're going to go ahead and populate on over to this drag dot. And this, I think, is a really underutilized gem here. I've started using it a lot. It's really, really cool because I can go ahead and select my draw size by holding S and picking what I would like. And then when I go ahead and drag out my texture, while I'm still pressing and holding the left mouse button, or I'm on my pen and I have clicked, I can actually start moving this around and find the exact spot where I want that texture to be. And then I can go ahead and let go and say, yep, that's what I would like. And with that draw size control, all of my textures will come out the same exact size. So if I wanted it smaller or bigger, I can then go ahead and increase or decrease my draw size to get a much bigger texture. But the point is here, I get to be able to move that wherever I would like so that I get it exactly in the right spot the first time instead of having to constantly drag it out and then Control Z or Command Z, depending on if you're a Mac or PC. So that's a really fun one. I really like doing that a lot. So yeah, really, really cool with texturing. And that was a neat little fun one. Let's see here. We're going through some of the chat too, just to make sure we're getting some live questions. I don't know if you see anything, Paul, you would like to jump on?
I got one. Yeah,
go ahead. I'm gonna spike it back. Spike it back.
Okay, so this one, I'm assuming this is, I'm just phrasing the question the way you put it. Where'd you go? It was a ZModeler question you were asking specifically about extruding off an existing stuff. So I can't find it now in the chat. So yeah, there is a way to do that. So right in here, I've got this polygroup I'm highlighting over. So right now I have QMesh selected, and then I'm selecting polyloop and polygroup. I could do polygroup all in this scenario if I wanted to as well. Polyloop means you're going to do two actions at once. I'm going to select the faces that are in a polyloop and select the faces of the polygroup that I'm actually clicking on. So to give you a visual, all right, so when I come and click on this, this is what it's doing, right? So these are being QMeshed along each of the normals. And what you were asking is, and I use this, like I can't tell how often I use this for ZModeler. I want to say, no. What I want is a new surface from these particular faces. So now you can do and rip it off and then add some thickness. So now these are separate pieces. I'm not 100% sure this is what you were looking for. Let's see, someone just put, is there a way to extrude with ZModeler polys along normals or copy extrude amount of the other poly? So this is what I would do. Okay, and so what I'm doing for that is when I click on this, now just hold the control key. And what ZBrush is doing is here, we'll turn on the display properties double so you can visually get a better look at this. It's just taking the loop that I want and ripping it off and making it a new loop. And because of the way QMesh works, it sees that this new one is a flat plane. So when I pull on that, I can go ahead and do that, right? So this is super, I do this all the time. Like, especially like I'm making a character and there's some kind of nice things wrapping around the arm and everything. I can just use the existing topology and rip it. And I got now a new subtool to be whatever that's going to be. There's so many ways to use this. So it's something I use quite often. All right. Another one that came in that I want to take the time to answer. All right. So I'm just going to do it on a sphere real quick, just to visually get an idea of what you're doing here. So someone had asked, is there a way to start, in essence, cutting up something that won't have the ability, they won't be still mirrored or weld together? I don't remember the exact verbiage. It's in here somewhere. It's in here somewhere. Let me see. Okay, is there a way to, for example, to cut off a fragment of several visible subtools at the same time without joining them together in the case of Boolean operations? So what you're asking is, you want to make fragment pieces with several subtools and then not joining them? Okay, well, Booleans, there's 3 types of Booleans. So you have to really manage that and make sure you know what you're doing, because this is just a logical way of working. So for example, if I append, let's say, a cube, let's take this. I'm going to come out of solo mode. We'll resize this. We'll size that up like that. Let's go that direction. We'll make it go there. Let's duplicate it. Let's make another one go a completely different direction, say something like this. All right. So if I have these and I throw on live Boolean, right? Whoops, I had the control key still pressed. What you got to be looking at now is the order, number 1, of your subtools. And then number 2 is what Boolean operations are you doing? So by default, they're all set to union. So that means weld everything. So delete any intersecting topology, get rid of it, and then weld everything else together. So that's not what I think you were looking for. You're looking to cut up pieces. So then you would want to switch to a subtract and a subtract, okay? And then, for example, you're creating this now, which is breaking up pieces, and you got a subtract, and then this is just a union. So what you want to start looking at this as, okay, the sphere is the start process. And the sphere is going to be my main mesh, and everything else below it is going to do something to that sphere. So in this case, I am telling it to cut with this and cut with this, right? And you can do the opposite. If I turn this to intersect, then you only get this. So what's happening now is I'm starting with a sphere. The second one is being subtracted. So that's how you're getting this cut through the middle. And now the third one, I've switched to the third Boolean, which is intersect. So that means that third cube, whatever of the ones above it are within that cube, that's all that is left and maintained. Now, when you were playing with live Booleans, this is something that's near and dear to me, because live Booleans is a game changer from my artistic workflow. I think almost every single model I work on, I use live Booleans. I really do. I don't know why I pluralize live Boolean all the time. If you notice, people, I do it all the time.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I 100% always start making folders. The reason why I prefer making a folder this way is I will put this in one folder. So I can turn this stuff on and off. I can look at it as a unit. But what I really like about this is running the Boolean operation. I do not use this as much anymore. Like this option down here, make Boolean mesh. For me, my go-to is using it in the folder. So I click on my little gear, and then your Boolean options are right here. It's the same thing. And now I just say Boolean folder. And the beauty of this is it's already right here as a subtool that's added right below the bottom of the folder. So it really opens up a lot of workflows for me, or if I got this final and I want to go change some things, I still have everything in one tool. So I can just delete this one if I want to change my result up. Or maybe I want to even here, let's add another piece. Let's add a cube. All right. And then let's insert a cylinder. All right. And then now I'm going to start another group. So now I have multiple start groups. So what this means for you all is we are now looking at these as almost like separate pieces in a way. Okay. So here we'll go like this. Let's grab it down. So now we've got a cube. Okay. So we got to go bigger. We'll go bigger. There we go. There we go. So now I've got this. Oh yeah. This is modern art. I feel like I should be in Miami right now. Art Basel. This is happening. It's the start of a mobile. Just call me Calder. Just call me Calder. Wow. He's really rushing back on me right now. It's rushing. All right. So in this scenario, I've got two start groups within a folder. This is again why I live by the folder system, especially with live Boolean, because now I can say gear and hit Boolean folder, and I'm not using dynamic subdiv, so I'm not going to click this one. And then now, not only do I get those, I get everything else below, right? So I'm getting both. So this is the first one I made. So we'll delete that. So now you get two pieces because each start group becomes a new subtool. So this is my preferred method of going about this. And then just because I'm loving tangents today, the other thing that you might want to play with is the curved knife brush, right? Which has been a very popular brush. Just start knifing things around. But what you might want to do is turn on this B radius, which is control and space bar is how I'm pulling this up. But where that lives is right in here. So you're going to come up to your brush menu. I'm in my brush menu that I've docked. And there's clip brush modifiers. You can see right here, B radius. And then now if you do something like this, you only keep the brush radius. So the brush radius is the smaller circle, not the bigger circle. The bigger circle is your focal. Okay, so see, boom. But now if you do Alt key, you can start cutting at things like this. And then, yes, I'm making stuff. Modern art, Mom. Look at my education. Look what it's done for me. Look, Iron Man, look what it's done for me. All right, let's throw it back to Ian.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's super great. Hey, real quick, Paul, just can I pop quiz you for a second? I'm just curious about something. Why do we call it live Boolean?
Because you can change the shapes live and watch it all happen. You don't have to commit yourself. So it's non-destructive.
Non-destructive. I love that. Super, super perfect. All right. Well, as you can see on my screen, we have a bit of a technical question, and it's a two-parter. We had a question come in, and then somebody in the chat asked a question that actually is kind of jointed to it a little bit. I don't know why I went that wording phrase, but that's what we're going with. So the question in the chat, which is first and foremost, is there a way to set double or rotate axis, like rotate on y-axis default when you start up ZBrush? So the thing is you could set up your ZBrush to start uniquely in a lot of ways through projects. But one of the things that we have done for everyone, and I'm going to go ahead and post this in the chat, is we have a Z plugin called ZStartup Utility. And if you go ahead and download that and then install it in the ZBrush, when you come up to your Z plugin, you can see at the bottom here we have ZStart Utility. And this will allow me to have rotate on Y turn on by default. So I can turn on a lot of these different features. If there's something here that you don't see, like display properties on the double, if you turn that on and save the project out and then reload it, that's how I've gotten it to show up again. But for the most part, you just want to save a project out and then you want to save that project to load. ZStartup Utility does that for you. So that's what I would recommend you do for that. And to kind of follow up with that, a question that we got that come in is, I spent all this time adjusting my custom UI in my startup. How can I save my custom UI and transfer it to another version of ZBrush, or rather another computer? Like I work at home and I work in the office. So what you can do is when you go up to preferences and you've stored your UI the way you like it, what you could do is come up here to save UI. So if you say save UI, you're going to go ahead and place that wherever you would want. But if you notice here, it defaults to wanting to save in the startup folder that ZBrush launches with. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw this on my desktop and say, it's mine. It's mine. You can't have it. And that's what I'm typing in. So this is mine, can't have it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. So now that's stored and saved on my desktop. And then when you want to go ahead and load it into your ZBrush for the first time, you can just come up, launch ZBrush, go into load UI, go into your desktop, and you can see right there, it's mine, you can't have it, .config, and you can go ahead and open that, and that will bring all of your stored savings from that UI on over. The only thing it does not save, and I just want to call this out real quick, is that if you had your gradient background, like let's say you had the range something set like this is a document save, and so you actually want to save this different. While it will save with projects, if you're loading ZBrush for the first time and you just stored a UI, you just want to come over and adjust that to your settings with the document. So document, maybe change your range, and then you just say save as startup doc, and then that will start at the next time with ZBrush. So a bit of a twofer, but that is how you can toss back and forth your UI. And again, let me drop that link one more time, just so you can, everybody here can actually, oops, that is the wrong page. That's the page. Download that. And also, I'm going to rant here for a second too. Going on the question that was already kind of answered in the chat, but where can I learn ZBrush? You can learn ZBrush in our very own ZClassroom, which I'm also going to drop the links to as well. And this is a great place. All of this is completely free. You don't have to worry about anything else. You know, you just come in here and say ZBrush introduction, and you can come through and check out these videos. We're always working on updating these videos when we can. So, you know, some of these videos might be, you know, a couple versions behind, but all the information is still very relevant, which is why it's on the website. So definitely come through and check out ZClassroom. We've even categorized it to beginner, intermediate, advanced, and even preset courses. So you could come here and say, oh, there's a getting started course. Go ahead and click that, or there's a texturing course. Go ahead and click that. And this will help you get started with ZBrush. So especially if you're new and you're trying to get all this information, you know, Paul, myself, and a lot of other streamers that come on live here, that's also another great way to come in and ask your questions. And each artist does things a little bit differently, which is really unique because that would give you a perspective of how you can learn ZBrush. Because Paul does things a lot differently than I'll do things, and vice versa. What? Yeah. We use it differently. It's a mind blown.
No way.
So, you know, each artist has their own unique flavor to it. This is what's so amazing about ZBrush is you're able to just be an artist. You don't have to worry about, if you're not used to heavy 3D modeling programs, you're like, oh, I don't know. ZBrush is the ability to sketch and just draw in 3D, essentially. So, you know, definitely pop on over there, check this stuff out. It's a lot of fun. So I'm going to volley it back to you if you got anything else, Paul, if you want to add anything.
Oh, boy, do I. I'll go all day. Okay?
I know you will.
I'll go all day.
Love it.
Okay, someone asked about preset panel looping. Bingo, there's already a plugin for you. So same location Ian just covered. Right here, there's actually a plugin called panel loop presets. So yes, you can save out your own panel loop presets if you wanted to. All right. There's also, you could just use ZRepeat as well for the plugin. That'll also take care of your ZRemesher question that you had, repeating the same ZRemesher options, which also the beauty of this is you can tell to do it to just the subtool, all visible subtools, or even all subtools. So you can click one button and then it'll go do everything for you, which in essence, you could also just make a macro. All right. Mm-hmm. So, and make a macro that just sets everything. So along here, you would make a new macro in here. And then it's asking me to initialize. Do I want to fully initialize? I'm going to say no. And now it's just watching me. It's just watching me. You're watching me. Okay. So what it's looking for is the next buttons and sliders and things I'm going to change. To your ZRemesher question, if you have found you like a certain settings, like, hey, I like keep groups on. I want the smooth groups to 0. And I want my target polygon count 10. So this is all being recorded. In essence, you're writing code right now. We're all code writers all of a sudden. Yeah. And then it's just like a lot of other programs. Like this would be like actions in Photoshop. and you just end macro, and now you need to save it. So I'm going to save it in the proper folder, which is my program files. In this case, the Pixelogic one is the version I'm using, ZBrush 2022.0.5, ZStartup macros. It needs to be within a folder. So there's already a miscellaneous folder. You could definitely make your own folder. So I would just call this ZRemesher, whatever you want to call it. Well, I got to put my pen down. It's being difficult to write. I don't know. Set. Right. And then there. Okay. Now I don't want any of the information from the image. And then the macros. The beauty of the macros is you can reload it if you want right here without actually restarting ZBrush. And now this will just change the settings. So what you have, like by the default, we had this, right? We had here. This is the default. So I can come over here and tell it to run that macro and then see, boom, it all ran it. So
Bada bing, bada boom.
you could do that as well and just save out your own hotkey is what most people do that do their own macros. They'll start using their own hotkey or even just put that in a menu and it becomes their own plugin. Like you could easily create your own plugin in that way. So there you go. There's hopefully should help that. Now, another question that came through, and I want to cover this before because I think this is so important. And this, I think, has changed workflows for a lot of people that have embraced this. So one of the things that we are all doing, we've been talking a lot today about things like Sculptris Pro, DynaMesh, right? But there is times where you're going to want to have nice flowing topology. So you want to use the ZRemesher. So how do you get the details back that you had? So there is a workflow to do, but I personally no longer do that old school workflow. I've abandoned that workflow. I've moved on. I'm going to go with a different workflow that I want to show. I really want to highlight this because I think it changes some things a lot. So I'm just going to throw some more. We'll throw some more Damien standard on this. In fact, here, let's even divide up. Let's get even more topology. Okay. And say, yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. No. Okay. So now you can start just throwing some details in here. Right. And now you've really found that this is great, but now you've got a subdivided mesh that was made from a DynaMesh. Okay, so we go down, it's got triangles and quads. So the flow is not really following this. And I'd like to get a better flow of that. So obviously, the benefit to this is ZRemeshing. Now, here's something else I want to add into this. There is not really a massive benefit if I go up another subdivision level or if I go up even another subdivision level. And all the testing that I did when we were building the ZRemesher, I'm telling you right now, everyone pens down unless you're taking notes. Okay. If you're Wacoming it, put it down. Put the digital pen down. Okay. Note wise, go ahead, have it up. There is no need to send 47 million polygons to ZRemesher. You're not really going to get a different result, honestly. If you set a 47 million polygon mesh compared to if I drop this way down to even something this 726,000, I'm telling you, the result's not going to be massively different. What you only want to send to ZRemesher, in all honesty, is really just the major form, silhouette, high peak points that you really want to keep. Because also on the flip, if you're sending something that's 46 million, 50 million, you're sending more information, so it's going to take longer to ZRemesh. And if you're that high, I'm probably going to guess you have a lot of details like skin pores or wrinkles. You don't really need that in the remeshed version. You just need nice, clean topology that follows major peaks, i.e. this is following a major peak. So as an example, I put this high here for a reason because this is actually going to be try and remesh. So this is what I mean by you don't need to go really high. So I'm going to show you an example of this just remeshing with the high and without the high. All right. So I've got this, and then now I'm just going to remesh, and I'm only at the 726. We'll stay symmetrical, and I'm just going to say default. I'm going to stay default remesh. So you got to think about that. This is now sending the 726,000 polygon version of this lion head compared to the 47 million polygon version. Like there's no real major difference, especially for this sculpt, right? Between this version and the super 47 million. So save yourself some time and just drop down some levels and then get the remesh version if you want. Okay. So this is going to give you a certain workflow that I prefer to have in here, right? So I don't want to just be able to do the old school workflow would be duplicating this mesh and then going at the duplicated mesh. Okay. So like you can see, here's even another version of him. Oh, he's beautiful. Beautiful, right? So this is only 100,000 polygons. And just actually that's with the beard, right? So now I can split this off. So this is only 96,000 polygons. For the sake of time, right? Remeshing this. I want to send this. And this is fine. I don't need to send anything else higher. I'm just trying to get some new topology that's not triangled, not quaded. Just give me some nice, cleaner new topology is all I'm looking for, right? But then obviously you are going to have versions that have subdivision levels and might have millions of polygons at your disposal, okay? So there's the clean mesh, right? But what I want to do is let's throw some sculptural stuff on this as well. All right, and then let's do something like this, something like that. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Damien standard it. Okay, and then I'll even go up another level, let's say, and then you start putting in some of those nice details that you want to have. I'm going nice stylistic, yeah, in there. Get a nice little peak going through there. Make sure it's really hitting those forms that I want to have on this particular piece, right? This is really what I'm trying to do in the beginning stage of maybe the sculpt. I'm just trying to land some important parts of this style that maybe I'm trying to capture within this model, right? And then I can even go down and I'll even smooth this out. In essence, even just get rid of that. That bumps and all that stuff that's going on, I don't really need it. Okay, and now I'm going to remesh this. And I'm going to get now a clean topology, but I've lost my details. I purposely smoothed out some stuff. And then you guys are going to have higher details than what I even have right now that we're talking about. I'm just trying to keep this fast for the purpose of us moving along. Okay. Yeah. So now that I have this version that's nice and clean, I'm going to divide up a couple times. Right. So now I'm sitting at 151,138 polygons on this particular model. I've got the clean, but I've lost this parts of the sculpt. So I'm going to go backwards and let's see here. I like that portion of the sculpt. I'm going to hold the control key and then I'm going to click. Okay. So again, hold control key and click on that undo state. I'm going to bring it back now to the state where it's remeshed and divided. So now I have the remesh and divided version. And so now I'm going to tell ZBrush what I want you to do is look at that gray state here, which is that undo selected. And I want you to go grab that. And I want you to get the information from there. So in the subtool menu, I'm going to open up the project down here at the bottom. I'm going to say, I don't want any color. I just want geometry. And I'm going to tell it just project the history. So like that, I get my sculpt back. So I don't do the duplicating meshes anymore. Okay. It opens up a really great workflow for me. And I'm going to add one other part to this. So let's say now it's the next day or it's 4 days later. And now you open this back and you're like, I really don't like what I did here. If keyword, if you are saving a project and not a tool, here's the benefit of a project. If you have a project saved, you're going to save these undo history points. And you can save up to 10,000. That's right, 10,000, okay, on each subtool. 10,000 maniacs, just like what's in my mind. 10,000 crazinesses that's in my mind. Ooh. So the benefit for me is, you know what? I don't even want this anymore. This isn't working for me. How about now I go backwards to the point of maybe before I even put it in the sculpt, all the way to here. And now I'm going to mark that undo, come all the way back to our remeshed version that has the sculpt. And then I'm going to tell ZBrush, how about you go recall the history of this? Okay. So I can just tell it to recall the history and delete literally from whatever, how many undos ago was that? I don't know, how many was it? 50? Something like this. So what I'm trying to really show you here is even with subdivisions, even with messing with a mesh, you have a non-destructive little bit of a workflow here where you can continually call on that undo history, use it for projections, getting the sculpted after the remesh. In this case, erase a portion of the mesh that I no longer want anymore. Or if I want to, right, you can bring it back in if you want to along the way. So I can come back now and say, oh, you know what? I want to get it back, right? So just go find an undo point that works for you, Control tap and say, I've changed my mind. Let's get it back. But then the beauty of this is you can even use masking. Like, come on,
yes. Put a horn in there. Perfect.
Happen?
Put a horn in there. I love it. See, masked off a nice spot.
There you go. Yeah, put a horn in
perfect. Yeah, perfect.
All
right. I'm going to steal it then. I'm going to steal it from you for a second.
You now. On to you.
We had a good question, and I was making some art. I was doing my thing over here with cubes. Thought this is pretty. When I thought of a really cool, easy way, especially with ZRemesher, because you were talking about that a little bit. This is a trick I learned that really just helps my workflow a lot, especially with hard surface. And then we're going to get into the question, which is about measuring within ZBrush as well. So as you can see here, I was playing with live Boolean. I got some fancy art. And I want to ZRemesh this because now that I've live Boolean it, if you take a look at my geometry, it's just a little all over the place and I would like to clean it up. Now, before I would just go to geometry and then I'd be like, okay, well, I got different poly groups. So let me turn on keep groups and then maybe I'll crease that and drop that down. This just complicates this whole process. Easiest thing to do, especially with something that's sharp like this. And I have all these nice cuts. You can see I have round cuts. I have some circular cuts with some 90-degree wall changes. Just come in here with something that looks like this and say detect edges and go ahead and just hit ZRemesh. And boom. Not only does that go ahead and actually clean up my topology super well, but it also creases those edges for me so I don't have to do that creasing part. And now I have a lot cleaner topology. So when you got something like this and you're just like, I need to clean this up, I need it to be workable, just go to ZRemesher, hit detect edges. It's a neat little thing. Works out wonders for me. I love this. That's part one. Part two is the measuring. So we had somebody in the chat asked about, they're creating molding tools or they would like to measure for clearance and such. So we're going to dive in a little bit of some technicality, so bear with me here. But what we're going to be relying on is we're going to go to Z plugin and we're going to go down to not Subtool Master. Yep, Scale Master. There we go. And this is where we're going to be living. So I'm going to dock this on the left-hand side. So Z plugin. I'm just going to click this little fun icon right there. And now I have Scale Master here. So the first thing before you start measuring in ZBrush, especially if you want like millimeters or centimeters or inches, what we want to do is actually set our scene scale so that we can have some actual true numbers to work off of. So when you go ahead and let's say I have my cube here, Scale Master, I'm going to go ahead and say set scene scale. It's going to base the scene off of the subtool that is selected. So whatever your subtool is selected, it's going to go ahead and it's going to isolate that specific subtool and then give you some measurement options. Here we have millimeters, centimeters, inches, feet. I work in 3D printing a lot, as some of you might know, so I work in millimeters all the time. So I'm going to click millimeters, and as you can see here, it's defaulting to a 1.19 by 1.19 by 1.17 millimeters. So I'm going to click on that, and now at the very top left-hand side of ZBrush, right under the alpha and brush menu, it'll actually give us a measurement in millimeters. And now we can use this to measure our wall thickness. So what I could do is I can hit W on the keyboard and then I can hit Y. So I have my transpose tool. If I hit Y again, it gives me the Gizmo. So I'm going to hit Y for the transpose tool. And now what I can do is I can actually measure from point to point. So if I click and drag out and hold shift, it'll actually snap to points. And then it will tell me at the top here that this measurement is the 1.1885. Goes up to 4 placements. So we can actually now start measuring with our wall thickness. So I can click this point here, start dragging this out, press and hold shift to get a straight line, come up to this next point, and right there, that's telling me I have a wall thickness of 0.0634. So this will help kind of guide you into measuring with ZBrush. We'll do that again over here. I have this nice wall thickness here, and I would like to measure that. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag, press shift to get a nice straight line. and then go ahead and let go. And that's giving me about a 0.1 millimeter wall thickness. So this is how we can go ahead and measure within ZBrush. And I really like this feature a lot. The reason why we hold shift too, real quick, if I start dragging this out, let's say I just drag out, not holding shift, and I go to here, you know, I might get a straight line, but then again too, if I go ahead and accidentally like measure a different point down, it might actually give me a really weird angle. So holding shift is just going to keep it true to that center so I can get to that point that I want. And it'll give me a nice straight line, which gives me the most accurate measurement. So to answer your scaling question, or to your measurement question, that's how you would go ahead and do it. So just set your scene scale, because ZBrush will default in units. So that would say 0.06 units or 2.5 units. This will set it to an actual measurement. Yeah, yes. I'm going to volley it back to you, Paul, if you got another one.
Yep, my turn.
Cool.
All right. So someone was asking in chat, how can you use live Boolean to do wall thicknesses? All right. So this is how I like to do it. And in fact, I prefer using live Boolean to do that. It's just going to help make things easier for me, especially if you are going to go down the wrapper prototyping world and for the purpose of needing wall thickness, I would assume. That's why this person's asking this question. So I've got, again, my little lion head here that I've been messing around and playing with. So the number one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate. So I have this version, right, which is in essence, let's look at this as like the sculpted version. So this, you can still have subdivision levels. This, you could have Sculptris Pro. It could be a DynaMesh. It can be whatever you want. This is why I prefer this particular workflow, is because this mesh, I do whatever I want with it. I'm good to go. However I want to look at that, I'm fine. So I'll duplicate the mesh, and my outcome that I'm looking for is this. I'm looking to create a result, right, that is like the interior part of this head. So this is what I want. I want to use that, in essence, as my thickness for me to be able to get a gauge of my printing and things like that. So I've got a duplicated head, and all you need to do is use DynaMesh. So in this case, here, I'm going to go backwards to, let's see, I think it's on this one. Yeah, on this one. We'll go backwards so you can even see the workflow live. Okay. So before I DynaMesh it, right, I'm going to use the ability now in DynaMesh to say this resolution slider or the picker, you can click and drag and say, what density do you really want from this model? So if you notice, wherever I move my icon cursor, look at the resolution in my ZBrush. It's changing, it's fluctuating. So this is actually picking, hey, the resolution needs to be at this number if you want the mesh to have this type of density. If I move it over here, the resolution needs to be at this number if you want that type of density. So this is a newer feature that we added that it's also been very handy and very useful for us, right? So I'm going to say that's good enough, right? So this, I'm going to DynaMesh it. And again, this is going to be another one of those things. I'm never, when I'm trying to do this, send something that's 10 million, 20 million. It's really not going to make that big of a difference for me. And so now that I have this DynaMeshed, I just select an insert mesh brush. It really doesn't matter what one you select. I seem to always gravitate towards the IMM primitives. I don't know why. It's just what I do. This is also going to be a way for me to create drainage holes. Also, if you have a resin printer, it's a great way to do things like that as well. So, but all you got to do now is hold the Alt key and then click and drag out, and you'll see it'll make a cylinder sitting there, and it's sitting inside the surface. So I'm going to switch to Gizmo and then just pull it out. And so we've got, I turn symmetry on, so we'll do that. Okay, so what we have is it's masked off, and we got these are set to be a subtract of a cut-in surface. And then all I do is I clear the mask, and I hit this Create Shell button right here. So I just hit that shell button, and that's exactly what this is doing. It's creating a shell inside this head. So right now, you've got a shelled surface with a big thickness that was controlled by a thickness here. I have it 20. So this is a mesh, as you can see in there. So I can now just get rid of this and just keep only this version. This is all I care about, is that right there. So on a modify, I delete the hidden, because remember, my sculpt, this is not my sculpt. This is just a piece of geometry that I want to use to create some thickness. And so I can smooth it. I can sculpt on this if I wanted to. It's completely separate. It has nothing to do with the rest of the model. So what I mean by that is here, if we turn on, let's make a start group. Let's turn on this head, okay? And we'll make that a start group, and then we'll turn that off so we only look at this part. So now what we have here is the sculpted version that's remeshed at 2.4 million. Then I've got this piece in here that is meant to be used as a cutting out. So now I'm just going to say, take this, turn on live Boolean, because that's what the question was, and then turn that into a subtract. If I want that to subtract into the surface, and then now I'm just going to give you an understanding. Let's grab a cube, let's insert it, let's set that as an extract, and then you can see there's your thickness, right? But then the really nice thing about this is non-destructive, right? So even if I don't like this thickness anymore, or let's say things change in your project and you need a bigger thickness or less thickness, I don't have to go reverse engineering really that much at all. It's just making a new version of this thick model, right? And then let's not forget, again, you can sculpt on this if you want to, right? So I can grab, and then I'm sculpting on the mesh that's providing and helping me get that thickness in here. And if you go back to what I've already discussed about why I folder up things, this is a prime example of why I folder up things.
Folders are so helpful.
Allowing it really easy, and you can see what your thickness is doing. And then Ian just covered stuff like measuring. You can actually measure from here to here. And then in the top, it's going to tell you what that measurement is. So if you're using Scale Master to first set everything, this is a fantastic workflow. Oh, yeah. Start means, Kevin, that this is a start group in essence. It's a start section for when you're doing something like here. Here's a prime example that I have. Okay, so you have a folder, right? I got a folder in here. I've got one start group here. I got another start group here. What that tells ZBrush is this start group, only these three subtools are involved with it. And then this start group, there's only these two subtools involved. So in essence, because I'm using live Boolean and I got subtractives and intersections happening, even if I come in here and I add another element in here, if I insert a cube, all right, and then let's use that cube now and come in here and let's use that as a subtract. You can see it's subtracting through only these subtools. If I turn this start group off, see now it's changing the ones behind. And I only want it affecting this and up to the start group. And then that's it. And then again, like I said, click here, Boolean folder, and now you're going to get, again, the two pieces. There's the one, and then now there's the other. That's what it's doing. Yes, the stream will be saved on YouTube for sure, and we'll be chaptering it out as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So real quick, if I understand, Ryan has a question here talking about, is there a way to hotkey your history? Because maybe you want to go back a little bit on all that stored history. So, I got my little smiley face here, but, at some point in time, maybe there was a point in history I would like to store. What you can do, if I understand your question correctly, is actually we can store or target a specific spot within that history. So if I press and hold Control and tap one time, you'll notice that there's a little white box now in that history. And this is more just storing that specific spot in history that you can then either project those details or call back to that point in time at any point that you would like. So yeah, while your history does get long, if there is a spot you would like to kind of fall back to, that's a really great way to do that. And that's good because we have other features like adjust last that work off of that, where we could say, okay, maybe I don't want that one right there. Maybe I want this one to be stored. And then I want to kind of focus in just a little bit more and focus on these here. And now I could come through and adjust last and change the shape. And that's pulling back from that point of history on forward. So anything I did after that point, it's going to go ahead and call back to. So hopefully that answers your question. And then the other question I wanted to, it was kind of a piggybacking off of the measuring. Sometimes when they send their models to another software like Cura or Prusa Slicer, their measurements are off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and default back to my beautiful work of art here that I spent so much time working on.
It's gorgeous.
Pretty, I love it. So I want to be able to make sure that this is going to be the size that I say it is. So we're just going to run through that process as if it was the first time. So we're going to go back and focus on Scale Master. And before we had hit Set Scene Scale, which went ahead and gave us the current scale of the model as it was. From here, now I want to adjust the size of this model. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in, because it's a cube, I'm going to type in, let's say 35.25 and millimeters, and I'm going to say resize subtool with all. So that's going to resize all the axes together. It's going to go ahead and scale everything up. And the thing to remember is when you're working off of the subtool you have selected, that's where all your measurements are coming from. So it's important to note that I'm working on this cube. This is the cube measurement I'm setting. So now it should be 35.25 millimeters because it tells me that's what it was, and it resized. If you would like to verify that, just because like you're OCD like me, and you're like, I have to see the numbers, you could just hit Set Scene Scale again, and it will tell you, yep, 35.25 millimeters. You don't have to. It's just, I do it out of habit. that's kind of my thing. Now what we could do is we can export out this model to the unit scale. So the scale that we just set it to, if we hit export and we say like, this is my cube is mine. Whee! I'm going to go ahead and export that out. So I'm just going to say save. Now when I go ahead and I'm going to bring up my Prusa Slicer here, and we'll just get rid of this one. And now I'm going to go ahead and cube is mine. I'm going to drag this in. And at the bottom, it might be a little hard to tell, but its size is 35.2. So my size came in correctly. That's one way to do it. The other way that you can export out as well is if we come on up to 3D Print Hub here. Now, this is what I would like to preface real quick. So pins down, as Paul says. What we want to do is actually the subtool that you've kind of controlled your size. I like to keep that subtool as my default to control the sizing. What I mean is if I start with the cube and I set that to 25.4 millimeters, I want to make sure that all of my measurements are based off of that subtool I selected. It kind of keeps things a little bit clean. In this case, I use this model in Scale Master, but these plugins, they don't necessarily talk to each other. So we want to make sure that we set this up correctly to do what we need it to do. So we need to then update our size ratios if we're going to then use the 3D Print Hub plugin in conjunction with the Scale Master. So I would say update size ratio with the subtool that I have set my scene scale with. And now it's going to give me those options. And I see here 35.25 millimeters. That is the scale I was working in. So I'm going to click that. And now we've told ZBrush that this is what we're working off of. So from here, we can go ahead and export our STL. We'll call this something. We'll just call it whatever and say, yep, that's fine. And now I'm going to go back to my Prusa Slicer here. And I exported out a bunch of stuff. So this will be fun to see which one it is. Boop. There's my basic cube. And then let's see. I should have named it. Paul, this was my fault.
Always be naming.
Always be naming. Learn from my example. Don't be like me. Name. Yeah, see, look at this. I've done all this. This is live. I can't edit this. I'm sorry. It's probably this last one. You know, it's probably like the very last one you would ever pick, which it's nothing. But this is fun. I bet everybody's having a good old time. Here it is. There's my cube. There it is. All right, after all that work. So I got my cube, and at the bottom it does say 35.25 millimeters. So we did it, guys. We did it. So again, you want to make sure that whatever subtool you're setting your scale, your scene scale in, work with that one. What I like to do is have a cube that I pre-name 25.4, and then I actually work with that cube So it just, for me, it keeps everything organized. Like Paul with folders, I actually have a cube that I default because it's just easier for me to make sure that all of those measurements are accurate, especially for 3D printing. Oh, yes, not a problem, Ryan. Glad to answer that question for you. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Well, I think that's about it, unless there was something else, Paul, you wanted to...
No, I'm not done. No way.
You're not done? Oh, well.
I'm not done.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Throw it back. Throw it back. Okay, so there were a couple other things that popped up in the questions. And there was also one that came to us. So I want to cover these because I think they're important items to talk about, and for all of you to make sure you have an understanding of what's happening. All right. So I am going to show once again. I know we're getting tired of this piece, but I'm looking at it because I'm like, I need to go finish this guy. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. All right. So someone had brought into us, why does it sometimes when I have select lasso being used that it selects a polygroup sometimes, and then sometimes it selects something else? Well, that's a feature. That's on purpose. All right. So what I want you to look at specifically is when you're doing a lasso selection, obviously it's a lasso select, right? So whatever is going to be in that green shape gets selected. If you hold the Alt key, it becomes red, and that's deselected and the rest stays. Now, someone is saying, well, when I'm doing polygroups, okay, I want this where I can select a polygroup, but sometimes that happens. This is a feature. Right. So what we are doing is I'm going to turn it to low polygon just so you can get a visually understanding. Even though I'm using a select lasso, notice that it works a little bit like ZModeler, where you can see the polygon face and you can see an edge and see a point. This is on purpose. So when you look at an edge and see it's, I'm going to zoom in, see how it's white? My edge is white there. That is going to tell ZBrush when you click an edge, go find that edge loop and deselect that edge loop. So that's what it's doing. So when you're doing this, it's important actually when you're selecting polygroups, it's about the vertex point to click. So there, that's a polygroup, right? And then there's an edge loop. Okay. So with that said, the other thing that I want to share and show with you all is when I want to even select multiple polygroups at once, you've noticed this side, there is this reddish, there's a purple, and what do we want to call this? Lime green. Okay. So now I'm going to hold down the control and shift. I have a lasso selected. I'm going to click on this point right there, and notice it actually select all three polygroups, not just one. So the point you click on is the point of interest for selecting polygroups. This one vertex point that I am now hovering over, that vertex point has three polygroups making it up. It's not just the purple, it's not just involved in the purple polygroup, the green polygroup, and the red polygroup. It's all of them. So when you click on that point, right, I get those three. If I want an edge loop now, I go boom, I get an edge loop. Okay, so that's what it's doing. It's a feature actually. As long as you understand that, and right out the gate, understand this process of vertex clicking for your polygroup selection, it'll make things have a lot better understanding for you. Okay, and then the one that came up in the chat that I think is relevant for this, so I'm going to turn off this. Okay, and we got all its glory of where I was at with this model. Yes, beautiful.
Yes, looks so good.
Be art. That's what I'm looking at when I do this. So someone had brought up and said, hey, Paul and Ian, every time I do this, anytime I do an append or an insert, and I want to take, say, the cylinder, okay, I get the cylinder. It's there for me to use. Okay, so I've got a cylinder in here in this world, but I want to now edit it. In essence, I want to be able to have the control that if I went up in here and then just said, let's go to cylinder 3D, and then down here in an initialized state, I want to have like an inner radius. Maybe I want to change the spans through there. Maybe I want to change these spans and make it be more of a different shape, even a triangle shape, change the different heights, like all of this, right? So the person that was asking this said, hey, I want that ability when I'm looking at this, something like here, let's look at this guy now. Okay. So I want to add another shape to this, and I want this shape to be a little bit different. So first of all, the insert is adding the subtool right below the selected subtool. Append, unfortunately, is always in last place. It's always putting it at the bottom of the list. Okay. So if I want to add something right below this, I'm just going to do it actually right now. I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to put the cylinder. Okay, so the cylinder, there it is. It's plopped into place. Now, the person that's asked the question said, well, what if I want to change this? Now I can't. Because the minute you insert or append the primitive, it becomes an actual mesh. So something I want to show you that, again, is one of these things that might not seem like a big deal, but once you start using it, you'll have your aha moment, and then you'll really love it. And I'm a big fan of it, especially when I'm doing something with live Boolean on hard surface. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn on my Gizmo, and then I'm going to click this here. And look, we've got the shapes here as well. So there are actually two cylinders. I personally only use majority of the cylinder 3D. I don't use the polycylinder as much. I like using the cylinder 3D, which is what I appended, a cylinder 3D. So what I have here is a subtool selected. I've got the Gizmo on, and I can say, how about instead of a cylinder, let's put a ring. And so now I have a ring here, and I can see this bigger. And what I've done is deleted the cylinder and gotten rid of it and replaced it with the actual ring. So I'm now going to go back and select the cylinder this time, and now you'll see this cylinder replace the torus. What I want to highlight right now is everyone see that blue arrow? See where it's pointing? It's pointing just. Ian started sound effects in the beginning, and I just figured we got to. I feel like Ian, poo poo is your favorite sound effect. It's like
it's my default. Okay. It's what I've been shipped with.
It's what you've been shipped with. Yes, yeah, I like that. That's a t-shirt right there. It's what I've been shipped with. Okay, so that blue arrow is super important to you when you're using this workflow. So what I mean by that is I'm going to rotate this, okay, so that the arrow is now pointing this direction. The blue arrow is pointing this direction. Okay, and now if I click this and let's say ring, notice the direction of the ring now. You remember it was like more of a flat, like a donut sitting on a table. Homer, right? Now it's this direction. So if I look and go to the cylinder, see it's the direction. Whatever that blue arrow is, that's the direction of the shapes. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is you asked, and now you have it. See these cones? I can say, well, I want to put a torus in there. I want to change the spans here and change the spans there. So this is a workflow that you could do. Just add any subtool, whatever it is, and just replace it and say goodbye. And now it's gone. And then now I'm going to add one more element. Again, I'm going to layer this. I'm going to throw it on top here. I'm going to hold that control key, click on the blue arrow so we duplicate. So I'm duplicating that cylinder. Okay, so here we'll even go and give it a little more flash. Duplicate the cylinder and then let go of the keyboard, pen still on the tablet, and I can duplicate and keep duplicating and keep duplicating and duplicate equal distance over and over and over and over and over again. Yay!
Yay. I love
it.
it.
So this method, I'm holding control and I got my pen and then I let go of both. Okay. This method, holding control and then the pen, but then letting go of control just keeps duplicating the cylinder in the same distance that I did. The reason why I want to bring this up is now I can have a workflow where I can do this, go back to this and say, now I want a sphere. And now I've got a sphere. And now I can position this, hitting the W key, putting that back there and say, okay, let's duplicate that. Now I do want the ring again. And then now we'll go back here and I'm going to size that up. So you can see this workflow really opens up me the ability to duplicate things and then change its form and its shape by using those cones. So hopefully that person's still here that asked that question because I found it very, very valuable for sure. Okay, Ian, you got another one?
I do have another one. This one was asked a little while ago. That was one of the questions that came in, not in the chat, but I thought this one would be really cool because I use it all the time. It's pretty simple. But the question is, how can I activate smooth preview when I'm working with low poly meshes? And as you can see here, I just kind of brought up the demo soldier because it was a really neat, it's a really neat project that just ships with ZBrush and it was perfect for what we were demonstrating. So by default right here, you know, we actually have some subdivisions, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete those lowers because this is actually a pretty good example. So you can see all these kind of, you can see all the facets and points that are showcasing, but I would like to work with this smooth. And so what you can do, I'm going to give you the hotkey shortcut first, and then I'll show you where that's at. And that's D on the keyboard, which is going to activate dynamic subdivision. So what this will do, we're going to say always yes, is that it's going to preview 3 levels of subdivision, but it's not actually active. If I were to go ahead and hit Shift D, that's just going to turn that off. And so where that's located, if I hit D again, is if I go under Geometry Dynamic Subdiv, there's a dynamic button right here. And as you could see, again, above, right here at the top, there's no subdivisions whatsoever. But this dynamic button is going to show me what it would look like if I subdivided this 3 times. And so I can work with this while I'm sculpting, and I'm still going to be just working on this lower subdivision level. So this is a really good one. Only when you go to hit apply does it actually generate those subdivision levels. So up until then, especially if you're working with stylized characters a lot, you can actually go ahead and just work with a dynamic subdivision, and you can keep all of your geometry nice and low, but still looking very, very clean. So this is a really, really fun one. Let's see here. Pew, pew, pew. That's the sound effect. Yep, gonna love it.
Is that your thought process? Is brain thinking, pew, pew, pew.
It really is. Yeah, it's pew, 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 or clunk, clunk, clunk. It's one or the other. Let's see here. Hey, Ian, I started sculpting my hand creature because I like your method, but I'm trying to redo my taste buds on the tongue. Do you think Noisemaker is the way to go for this? Hey, Chris, it's a great question, and there are a few ways. Noisemaker is actually really good for that. So let me quickly here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit. I'm on solo mode. Let me just go ahead and insert a sphere. Let me just sculpt a tongue real quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I'm just going to go ahead and populate this app, come through here. I actually like to use the transpose tool, and by holding Alt in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and lift that up. And now I have this kind of creepy looking tongue thing. Let's turn perspective off for a second by hitting P on the keyboard. And I'm going to use my damn standard, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of draw a nice little line here. And even just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and DynaMesh it. Because why not? This is the workflow. And then I'm going to go ahead and ZRemesher it because that's what we're doing today. Boop. Boop. Boop.
I think we should put a challenge out to everyone. Come up with sound effects for Ian's next stream. What a sound effect that he has to use in his next stream. Challenge.
Love it, love it, love it. Oh, real quick too, if you have a brush that has lazy mouse turned on, this is another one just kind of in tangent. As I'm drawing this out, you know, it's kind of just following around. But if I click and then press and hold the shift, it's going to allow me to drag out a really long tail that I can get a straight part of a straight line for me. This is a really cool one to do it. So now to answer that question is, yeah, if you have a texture and you'd like to get taste buds and stuff on, you can then with this, with your new tongue here, you can go to your noise, your surface noise. There we go. And then from here, yeah, you can just start cranking this stuff up, load up the strength a little bit, maybe get the size going on here. This is a really nice way to just kind of generate some quick noise. The way I like to do it, and so you can say, okay, and again, this is noise. It's just being previewed on the model. It's actually not applied to my model until I say apply mesh. The way I like to do it is I'll actually go to the standard brush. So that's B, S, and then T. And then I go to spray. And then I also go to like alpha 7. And then I just quickly paint on both negatively and positively. I'll just come in here, maybe subdivide up a little bit more, and I'll just paint these on here really nice and slow. And then if I really want to, I'll use that drag dot, maybe a big brush, and I'll come on and add some randomness to this so that it looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more organic, especially if we're going for something kind of gross. And you can quickly get a tongue like this. And then again, just come back, spray, kind of spray through, maybe smooth. The other thing too, actually with smoothing, especially for texturing something like this, I actually use smooth peaks a lot because this will actually keep the pits of the tongue or the little taste buds, so to speak. It'll keep those preserved, and it will just kind of knock off the peaks of the mesh itself, kind of giving you a really nice gross texture. And then you can come back in with a little bit of detail. So that's exactly how I would do it. I like the hand sculpted method, but the surface noise would work out really, really well. And if you're looking for maybe something specific, you can actually undersurface, you have Lightbox, and ZBrush ships with a lot of defaults. So maybe you want your tongue looking something like this guy over here, say noise 34, double click it. And there you go. There you go. Nice and gross looking. And then you can go ahead and come in and hit edit. And then you can actually adjust the scaling, the texturing, the strength of that, and find something that you really like. Say OK. And then when you're ready to apply this texture, you can just go ahead and say apply to mesh. And now that's going to go ahead and apply that texture to the mesh. Just make sure that you have subdivision levels that will actually capture that detail. So if you have something like, I'm lowering it down by hitting Shift D, but let's say I just have this and I'm doing a preview, you could see that the texture is still really good and it's looking nice. But then when I go back to surface and say apply to mesh, notice a lot of that texture went away. That's because, again, I just have a preview subdivision level turned on. So make sure that you have enough geometry to capture that detail when you go to apply to mesh. But that's how I would approach it. And yes, this whole thing will be recorded so you guys can come back and play it over and over and over again.
Wait, so he was asking something you did with the transpose line. Can you show the trick with the line, the deformation of the shape again?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of my favorites. So if you have the gizmo turned on by hitting W, hit Y again for transpose. And then what you do is you go ahead and click a point, and I'm going to hold Shift. The reason why is because I want that nice straight line. And then if you hover over the middle transpose circle, there's a little white box. Press and hold Alt. And what this is doing is this is actually allowing me to bend that middle section, and it's kind of pinning the end caps of this transpose. So this can allow me to come in and get those bend shapes. It's a neat little quick way to deform your shapes. Can't remember where I learned this.
Show them the Gizmo one too, because the Gizmo's now got it built into it.
Oh, I don't think I've played with that. Do you want to take the screen?
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah. I have not played with it.
All right. Okay.
Here, I borrow it to you. Take it.
Okay, take it away. Take it away here. Okay, so the Gizmo one also has that built into it now, right? So if you guys are using the Gizmo, hold on.
I think it's still showing me.
Okay, so there we go. See, I've got Mr. World Famous now, demo head. So the focal shift of the Gizmo by default now is -100. If you pull it off that, you can actually start using the Gizmo to start conforming the shape, right? So it's not moving. So see, he's not moving as a unit anymore. See, he's conforming the shape, right? So for example, if I decide to go, here we'll go a little bit more, a little bit less, and we'll mask off and we'll bring it down some levels so you guys can visually see. If I now hold the Alt key, I can click and drag the Gizmo along there if you want. And now by using the move, right, you're going to be able to do in relatively the same thing through here. So let's blur the mask a little bit, and then let's start forming. And I have here, I got 2 of them in here right now. Okay, so you can start forming this with the shift. So as an example here, you'll see it better on a sphere. Okay, and if we, yeah, let's throw some DynaMesh. Oh, Dyna. Oh, Dyna. Okay,
DynaMesh.
Enough of Dyna. Okay, so you can throw this in here. And again, even with the focal shift, you can even use rotations, right? So if you go even more conformed, so you can rotate a different part, like make a bean. So here, if we do all the way -100, and then I'll do stretch it out so we can get a better visual here. And then I'm going to move it to here. And then I'm going to go this positive direction. So you can start doing stuff like this too. So you can also not only use the move with the gizmo, you can use the rotate. And then you can use the move. And see, the move is also doing what Ian was talking about. And the beauty of this is you got a whole slider now to control the rolling off of this in essence. So you're going positive, it's going to be more local driven. The more negative you go, the more of like the whole unit. So see, the whole thing is being moved now, right? Stretching out, compacting. So the more negative you go, think about it as a whole movement, okay, piece. And then the positive you go, this is where you'll see only see the one part. And then, but you can start adding control. You can even add scaling in it as well. So you have all three. Look, you got all three axes.
It's a great way to get shapes. Like they're saying, like smoke and clouds. Like you got a nice smoke shape going on right now. It's really cool.
Right. And look, all this is from the gizmo. Look what I'm making. Like think about stuff you want to put on a building. So you just move your gizmo now and just start playing with the rotation and rotate it a little bit more, and then maybe scale that up. Like it becomes pretty addicting. I'm not gonna lie.
All right,
like,
I think I got to change my workflow now.
Oh, here we go. Live things happen, everybody. Things are happening live, right? Throw a little mask in there, right? And then start playing with that shape with a little bit of a mask.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you got a mask going on, and boom, look at that. Yes.
Sketching ZBrush.
Mom, look, I make art again. Okay? And it's definitely really amazing for if you want to now, God, I can't stop. I got to stop. Okay. If you take something like this brush, which is near another one that I love, okay, and you just start doing this stuff, think about it. Now you can switch to a gizmo, right? Yeah. And then move this to this area, right? And then just start playing with that portion.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And remember where this sits, right, is going to be important. And then what you have this slider. So if you start turning this way up, it's only going to work on certain portions. Okay. And then you can go other directions. You can move this wherever you want. And again, I'm switching from Alt key, right? Alt key, moving it. And then now maybe I want it to curl the other way.
Yeah.
Right. So using it in combinations for stuff like this could really create a pretty cool looking result.
With all those powers combined.
Yeah. Man, our powers? Are you Voltroning me right now?
Yeah.
Loving it. Okay, so Ian and I have been sharing a lot of stuff, but the whole reason why we were doing this stream too is we've launched a new AskZBrush page. So you guys have had the ability to ask him and I live questions right now. Well, guess what? You still can forever now. All right. This is where you can ask Ian or myself or Mr. Louis Tucci's back in the mix. Okay. People here in the ZBrush world, if you have a question that you want to ask about how to maybe do something in ZBrush, you can come here. So we've always done this through our Twitter feed, which the hashtag AskZBrush. We're taking that idea and making a page for you. So you can come here and ask, why is Paul so crazy? Really, obviously, you want to ask questions that pertain to ZBrush, obviously, and things that you want to maybe, hey, how do you do this? How can you do this? What does this feature do? So forth. Ian and I and Louie will get those questions. And not only that, when we get those questions, we put them now in the question page. So when we see the questions that are coming through, we now have a voting page here that you guys can go and upvote. Hey, I really actually want this answer. There could be a question here that you didn't even know you wanted to ask, and then you see it, and then you can say, actually, I want to vote on that. Okay. So like this, how do I create a recessed panel lines for a robot using ZModeler? I click on this, vote it, boom, it's got a vote now. So we're encouraging you all, you guys tell us what maybe question you want to go. There's already 3 pages here from you all that we have here. So this is a brand new page. So I encourage you all to get on here, get those questions asked to us. The questions are already there. Take a look and see what is there. So now, it doesn't stop there. We were like, we've already done, I don't even know what we're
So
at
many.
now, 500 and something videos.
500, yeah.
Something like that. So this is one location now. You can go and say, hey, I'm looking for something on curves. And then now you can search for this, and it's going to start populating AskZBrush videos and even videos that are done from streamers or tips from Summit. And you're going to have them right here. You can say, oh, this is what I was looking for. So you can search and see suggestions that pop up, or you can just say, I'm going to just go search. And then it's just going to give you the pages of anything that has curves in it, right? And you can see it's highlighted. So this is also what's new that you have to this page. So I'm going to put this again in the chat for you all, right? So you have this. This is part of the reason why we were doing this. So this is right on our ZBrush Live. Hey, there we are. So you come up here to AskZBrush, and then now you go to that tab, you get this page. And so you can ask questions, you can vote up your questions, and then search for already up to 500, okay, questions that are already been answered in a video form, whether it was myself, Ian, Joseph Druss, Old School, Solomon Blair, Louis Tucci. There's multiple people at in the ZBrush team that have answered questions here for you.
Yep.
Right? So I'm not done. I'm not done. I am
No.
not. If you haven't seen, the ZBrush Summit has been announced.
Yeah.
It's going to be all virtual. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah.
That's good. Ian, inner child again. Boop, boop, beep, boop. Okay, it's coming out. So it's going to be November 13th through the 16th. It will all be virtual, but if you guys know us, we're going to try and make this be a show. Obviously, with us in here, and let's throw Louis in the mix. It's now beyond a show. All right, so we're going to be here. Yes, there is going to be a sculpt off. So get in our newsletters, follow us on social media. The sculpt off is going to be November 13th. That's a Sunday. And then we're going to have presentations and many other things going on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So the summit is happening. It is virtual only. We're really excited. We've put together already some fantastic people that are going to present some stuff to you all. We're going to be announcing those shortly in another time, along with the sculpt off and its theme. We will give you the theme ahead of time. So for those of you that want to participate, I encourage you to get in here. Okay, so not only do we have a new AskZBrush page, not only we're announcing the summit, secretly we just gave you an update, right? So there is a patch that has just been released, ZBrush 2022.0.6. This is just a patch that's going to be available to all registered users, right? So this is fixing some issues that you've brought to our attention. This is also giving, some people have asked, this is giving the new Go Z to work with Maya 2023 and 3D Studio Max 2023. So you have a list here of fixes. So if you are on the Maxon side of licensing, you're going to want to use the Maxon app to get this patch. Again, this is a patch. So you go through your Maxon app to get the patch. If you're still on the Pixelogic licensing system, which is the old way of getting your perpetual license, you can either use the upgrader in the application folder, or you can log into your Pixelogic ID and get the full installer. So again, this is really important. Everyone pay. Look at me. Take your notes. Take your notes.
Put your pen down.
If you are in a Maxon licensing where you purchase ZBrush through Maxon, whether it's the subscription or perpetual through Maxon, you got to go through your Maxon app to get this patch. If you're old school like me and you've had a version from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you've got a Pixelogic ID, you're going to either want to go through there to get your full installer, or you can just go and use that Z Upgrader app that's in your 2022 folder right now, and you'll get the 2022.0.6. All right, so again, recapping, we got 3 major things that happened in this stream besides me and Ian being ridiculous. We've given you a new AskZBrush page. It's going to allow you to ask the questions here, allow you to search for videos, and start voting up those questions so we can see what videos we need to make next for you all. We have announced the summit officially. It's going to be a virtual only, November 13th through the 16th. That's a Sunday through a Wednesday. The sculpt off is going to be on the 13th. And we've given you a patch that is available to you right now through your Maxon app or upgrading through the application and the Pixelogic folder ZBrush version.
Yes.
Okay. So this has been a lot of fun for me. How about you, Ian?
I've had a blast. Hopefully everybody had a blast as well, because this has been great. Being able, we had so many questions, and we were just like trying to think of how we can just answer these questions in rapid fire succinction. So this was what we thought. So hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully you guys are excited for the summit. I'm excited for the summit. Again, like Paul said, we're going to try our best to always bring the most entertaining but also informative summit as we can. And you know, Sculptris is coming. Come on, guys. It's going to be awesome. So we're really excited. And we can't wait to share more with you. So stay tuned for all of that stuff. And definitely update, because, again, we heard what you guys are saying. There's a lot of bug fixes within that. So make sure to install the patch as soon as possible. You guys can do it. Get it.
Great. Well, that's it. That was our stream for Ask ZBrush. Also, keep an eye on our calendar. There was one other thing. We've got a nice stream next week, Tuesday, that Ian's going to be hosting. We're going to have an artist named Marcus. He's going to be showing how he uses ZBrush to make actual book covers. Yeah. So get in that calendar too, right where we sent you the link for the Ask ZBrush, and find out about other things coming up. So there's a lot going on in our world right now, in the ZBrush world, for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You could also, on that exact same website, check out presenters if you have a favorite presenter. We had a question earlier about why somebody wasn't streaming. We get updated all the time. Sometimes artists come and go and they take time off. So if you want to know if they're going to be streaming, go to the presenters section of that website as well and check the calendar, because that's always being updated. So, and that's it.
All right. That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Paul Gabry.
I'm Ian Robinson.
Thanks for joining us. Bye, everybody.
Bye.